Nokia had the future assumption that customers want many different cell phone models and always with a keyboard. VW, Toyota, Mercedes, BMW, General Motors and Ford, and virtually all other traditional car manufacturers had the future assumption that electric powertrains would not be marketable for decades, if ever. An assumption that today even threatens their very existence. How can something like this happen to even the world market leaders? But also restaurant owners, retailers, and gym operators had the future assumption that of course guests and customers could come to them at any time. A pandemic, as a surprise disruption of their future assumptions, was not on their radar. The issue sounds theoretical, but what could be more practical than the fundament of your economic existence? Future assumptions need to be treated critically, logically, and rationally. Instead, wishful thinking and emotional denial prevail. Yes, no one can predict the future, but there is an early warning system you can use to safeguard your company and your business. I'll show you how. You are betting your company on how good your future assumptions are about the behavior of your customers, about new competitors, about technologies, or about regulations. And that's why companies fail in the first place, because of wrong assumptions about the future. This is the cause of downfall. It's the wrong future assumptions that lead to revenue problems and liquidity problems. Only then does your business become troublesome and the daily effort unbearable. If the future assumptions are bad, no matter how ingenious your strategies are and how great your resources are, you run a high risk of failure. Most people are not aware of this problem or drastically underestimate it. Or people think the problem can't be solved, but it can. First of all, what are assumptions about the future? And do you have any at all? Every person and every company has assumptions about the future. What do you mean you don't? Did you build or rent an office? How long is your contract? Have you purchased any machinery? How long do you intend to use it? Have you invested in a product? When is the break even? Have you hired employees with permanent contracts? Voila, you are betting on the future. So yes, you too have assumptions about the future. You have several bets on the future going on. You cannot not have assumptions about the future. And if the market then develops differently than you have assumed, you stand there with the wrong products, the wrong investments, and unappropriately qualified employees. You will then be very good at what nobody needs anymore. Future assumptions are beliefs, your beliefs about what will change in the market and what will stay the same. Your future assumptions are the cornerstones and pillars of your business and your job's existence, or in other words, they are the strings on which your business hangs. With every strategic decision, you are committing to the long term. Most of them you can't easily and quickly and cheaply undo, so you have assumptions about the future. You are betting on the future. If you hop on the wrong train, you can't just quickly reverse your decision. If you decide to climb a mountain that doesn't match your abilities, you can't just jump from one mountain to the other on the way. You would first have to go back down through the valley, through the crisis. And meanwhile, your competitor has an unassailable lead because his assumptions or her assumptions were better. So far, so good. How do most companies deal with their future assumptions in practice? Carelessly. The following problems and dangers exist in practice. First, you are not aware of a large part of your future assumptions. Therefore, you are flying blind. How can I claim something like that brazenly without knowing you? Well, in 30 years, I've seen more than 1,000 companies and the strategies from the inside. If at all, future assumptions are only treated in passing, even though everything, really everything, is based on them. Do you have an overview? Do you have a list of your future assumptions? No? Then it's high time. Second, the importance of future assumptions for success in career and business is largely unknown. It's ignored or it's grossly underestimated. If you think that future assumptions are unimportant, or if you believe that you just have to let the future come to you, you will not critically examine your assumptions about the future and therefore take far too high risks. Third, many believe that nothing can be done about the problem of wrong estimations of the future. You cannot predict the future, right? but you can carefully and permanently check the correctness of your future assumptions in the here and now. This is not fortune telling, but a very practical and existentially important early warning system today. And 4, your future assumptions are emotionally colored and therefore tend to be wrong. Not what is written on the slides are the real assumptions of your company, but the deep-seated beliefs in your emotional limbic system and that of your executives. After all, if future assumptions are so much about life and death, about success and failure of your business, then future assumptions should be worked out and tested very critically, analytically, and logically, shouldn't they? When in fact, if we look at the many tragic cases, this is almost never the case. Rather, there's a lot of wishful thinking at work. Because the brain doesn't want to see the change. It would prefer everything to stay the way it is. It ignores the signals of change. And so we have a big problem. The quality of your future assumptions determines the quality of your future. And at the same time, your assumptions about the future are largely unconscious and then even colored emotionally. And that is conceivably dangerous. But it is also your opportunity. By handling your assumptions about the future more professionally, you can safeguard your company and make it more robust against surprises than your competitors. Now what? How can you better protect your company against surprises? How do you create an early warning system for your business? As I said, it's not about predicting the future. Nobody can. It's about making your company more future-proof by recognizing early when your assumptions about the future are no longer correct, so that you have more time to adjust your direction and your strategy. First, identify existing assumptions about the future. Simply derive your assumptions retrospectively from your strategic decisions. You're developing a new product, so you assume there will be a long-term need for it, right? You close the location, so you assume declining market potential. You decide to enter a new line of business, a new business area, so you have a future assumption that the market will really exist, and in the way you are assuming it to exist in the future. You're building a new office building, so you assume that many employees will be needed at that location. You're investing in a new technology, so you assume that it will not be soon made obsolete by another. Write down the assumptions about the future that underlie each of your decisions that you have committed to for several years. Second, ask your colleagues and employees about their future assumptions, but don't tell them what your future assumptions are. I'm pretty sure that if you look at the assumptions of your team, you look at a veritable mess of thoughts, a sheer chaos. Anyway, that's pretty much always the case when a team really talks about future assumptions for the first time. Everyone thinks something different is important in the future, calls it differently, and estimates it differently. Please be aware, realize that the existence of your company is based on this chaos of assessments of the future, on these assumptions about the future. It decides whether you will be successful, whether you will just survive, or whether you will fail with your business. Our clients are shocked every time they experience this. And this is exactly what should happen to your team. The shock should be and will be big enough that you will pay more attention to your assumptions about the future from now on. Third, play a business war game. Put yourself in the shoes of your competitors, competitors you know today, and competitors you can imagine in the future that are not yet here. Then attack your company. Try to steal orders and customers and revenue from your company through smart strategies and disruptive technologies. In doing so, you are putting your assumptions to a severe test, and you're going to improve them. I published a guide to your business war game some time ago. I linked to it in the show notes. Fourth, implement a radar system. Give each member of your team the task of keeping an eye on one of your future assumptions. Have him or her find out where there is early information about whether this assumption is still soundly based or is faltering. Ask for information from your employees in team meetings and in between. This keeps their attention. In this way, everyone in the team becomes a kind of a sensor and constantly checks future assumptions without effort. With these 4 steps, you can make your company a good deal more future robust. Later, you can expand your radar system with using scenarios or a trend system. You can use our trend system free of charge. There is an article and a video about the trend system to which I'll put a link in the description. If it's too tedious for you to make your future assumptions more solid on your own, we're happy to do it together with you. We've been doing this sort of thing for 30 years. Let's talk. I'll add a link to make an appointment. Have a bright future.